We are live.
We are live
in
recording, and this is a blab after our talk with Martin Ucik, who you see also on the screen. We were talking about relationships, what is the business of falling into love, what is the business of staying in love, what is the business of getting out of love sometimes, and how these stages that we go through in our life can change how we relate to the other person. And now we're just happy to be able to talk about anything that the conversation brought up in you, and we'd be glad to entertain you alive.
I hope many people come over. There were quite a few viewers live, although we had all the difficulty with changing places, changing addresses, but we obviously people were interested, and I really would invite you to come in if you have any questions. We can also do a sort of a coaching if you like. You know, you can tell us about your problems that we say. Henke dream. Is this
Henke? We may know this
our
person.
friends in Sweden.
In Sweden?
I don't know.
I'm not sure. So there are different ways defining love, and there's usually a lot of confusion about that. I would define it as a need, and I am, whoops, it's jumping around.
Yeah, up here.
Influenced by nonviolent communication in that respect. Usually just see a feeling.
Yeah, and it is Henrik in Stockholm.
Henrik.
Jump in, Henrik. It's fine.
Yeah, we'd love to have you. All right. But anyway, I'm not sure we have anything we can respond to. He was stating an opinion.
Well, maybe I can say a little bit something as usual.
That's fine. That's why we wanted you here. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, nonviolent communication is really great in expressing needs, and a lot of love relationships are need-based. And even though we say in what we call second-tier consciousness or integral consciousness, we're no longer coming from need. You know, there is still, I mean, we all have needs. That would be only in theory be, you know, that we transcend any kind of need, and then only come from a level of being in relationship. But we can still say that we become at least aware when we're integrally informed, or more aware about our needs, and we do no longer project them so much on our partner, and falling in love with someone is also not so driven by needs, but more by purpose and by being. And so we can really look at each stage, right? Where we're at a lower stage, you would say, I need a partner who provides me with material safety, or needs my material safety in order for me to feel safe in the relationship. Like in my second marriage, I was the only breadwinner, and that gave me as a man a lot of safety that my wife and my kids basically couldn't go anywhere because I was the sole provider, right? And so I never thought about them leaving me. So it goes both ways, right? And in the second stage, we might have a lot of sexual neediness and attachment. In a third stage, we might have a lot of, have a need for a powerful man, a woman, who can protect her from other physically or verbally violent men, and so on and so forth, right? And then we need a partner who's emotionally available and can express his feelings. And then we need a partner who has a vision. So there's always, whenever you get to know someone, or if you're single, then you date someone, you can listen to language, and if there is a lot of need, he or she needs to be that and that and that and that, then obviously the relationship will, if it unfolds, will very much be based on meeting these needs. And if the partners are no longer willing or able to meet each other's needs, then conflict in the relationship arises. And when we're, in theory at least, in second tier consciousness, then we can basically take care of our own needs. We can meet our own needs, and we're no longer projecting that on a partner. And then we have a relationship that's based in being values. Or another way to see that is that at the lowest level, you're in a codependent relationship. On the second level, you're in a dependent relationship. Then you can enter an independent kind of stage, interdependent, and then interbeing. And then in the highest form, interbecoming. Right? So you have different levels, and the higher you go, the less the relationship is need-based.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that when we need a relationship, that's when we're in trouble. And when we don't need a relationship, that's when we can have one.
Well, then very often we no longer see a reason to be in a relationship. And that's why these higher stages, specifically the highest of interbecoming, is a new emergence, and is really important for, going from this codependent, dependent, independent, or interdependent. Where do we go, right? If you just want to become whole and complete in yourself, not needing anyone. There's a book called Going Solo, analyzing this trend towards singlehood. But once we get to a level where we realize that we only develop in the context of self-other relationships, and that we're not static beings, but that we're constantly becoming, right? There is being and becoming. First, you rest in this moment, and you are who and what you are, but there is also relative time, and so you become, and this becoming is much more interesting and maybe healthy or furthered if you become in the context of a relationship, or co-create in a relationship, and that's way beyond need-based relationships.
Yeah. What I wanted to say was, as we are saying, falling in love with someone good for you, when I think we are not falling in love often when we are very unconscious, with the person we have in front of us, but in our own projections, in our own ideas, in our own hopes and fantasies that this is finally the man who will be everything for me. So it comes completely out of needs.
This is a woman with whom I can have sex anytime I want.
Something like that. And then comes out that you project everything in this person. And after a year or so, you find out, oh, that is not so. And then you think that the other person is it's the fault of the other person, no?
Of course.
But the other person normally has always been like that. It was only our projection, which you have to be that for me. Yeah. Now Hendrik is coming in. This is
Hendrik
fine.
said need is not tied to partners. That's
nice to see you again. Hello.
Hello, Hendrik.
Are you walking in Sweden, in Stockholm?
Pardon?
Are you walking around Stockholm again like last time?
No, I'm sitting comfortably in a chair. But I'm not going to be able to be along in this show very long because I have a call very soon. But I'm just curious about another topic. In couple therapy, there's something called schema therapy. And
what kind of therapy? Sorry.
Schema therapy.
Schema therapy?
Developed by Jeffrey Young. And in that, people usually have a lot of schemas that can be activated from their childhood. When needs were frustrated in their childhood period, and the parents didn't meet their needs when they were children. So they are unaware of those frustrated needs and their coping mechanisms as adults. So those, when they meet someone, those coping mechanisms, maladaptive coping mechanisms, intervene and mess up their relations. But as you get aware of your maladaptive coping mechanisms that were adequate when you were a child for survival, they're not adequate as an adult. So you reconfigure your coping mechanisms to adapt functionally as an adult. So I would say the transference and countertransference in couples is very much about this. When people get mixed up with their relationship and they don't know what is triggering them because they're lost in the childhood. They're confusing the childhood moment with the now moment.
Yes,
yeah.
that's...
Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And there are 18 Jeffrey Young has listed 18 schemas that can be activated and with a different kind of coping mechanisms tied to every schema.
And then how do you address that in a partnership or in therapy?
In therapy, you can notice what kind of coping mechanisms are tied for, like with a narcissistic person, for example, they entitlement is called entitlement. So they didn't get any boundaries at all when they were children, or they were totally traumatized. So they had to enforce themselves to survive, for example. That is one schema, but there can also be another schema, like their abandonment, like they didn't get any love and so on. So that need was frustrated when they were children, for example.
Yes.
So in therapy, you address those kind of behaviors when they show up in therapy. Like, now you speak like this. Is this the voice of your parents, and so on? And then they can realize, that's what's going on. And now, so how do you want to, if you were using your healthy adult mode, how would you readdress this situation to make it more functionally? Do you understand? Does it make any sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we understand the process. We don't know how to do it necessarily.
Yeah, there are ways to do that. Yeah, to discover the patterns, of the early childhood, and they are activated normally in relationships. And I think that's what Martin says. Relationships are a shortcut to development because they present the possibilities to see them and to begin to work on them. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yes. Yes.
That of course requires a willingness to look at your own interiority, right? To do introspection. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Introspection is very important, and as you said, Martin, that when you said this about monks sitting in a cave does sometimes less job for enlightenment. When you use relationships as a spiritual path, it can really make people grow.
Yes.
But you have to do it very consciously.
Yeah, and with a partner who is at a similar level of development, right?
Yes.
So we say clean up, grow up, show up, and wake up.
So the one the one good for you is the one who is in the same level of development, hopefully ours, no? And then is willing to collaborate, to grow himself, herself, and to go together. I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I haven't heard about this name of therapy yet, but I understand that it is similar to what we were doing in the feminine power training and so on. That talking about patterns and false beliefs and
false
so on.
identity.
Tell me the name again of the therapy. What's it called?
Schema therapy. It's developed by
how is that
Jeffrey
spelled?
Young,
Thema,
and recently-
T-H-E?
Can you write it in the chat?
SC.
Yeah.
Well, I can write it. Like,
Yeah, would be good.
Schema.
Yeah.
Italian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this year, or 2015, there was a release of a first book on couple schema therapy.
Definitely look into that. Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Can you write an address, a website or something where we find that?
I don't have have it right now.
Okay.
Schema therapy.
Google does everything.
Google.
Yeah.
And he always Google provided me without a start button today.
But unfortunately, I have to leave you guys right now because I have to take another call.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for your feedback.
But, nice
Yeah.
meeting you.
Thanks, Enrique. We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
So,
And
we have Zuzu.
there is Suzu, and there is also
Suzu has a question about relationship beyond that level of development he left off in the hangout. After individuation or awakening, teal and beyond. So,
that's it.
Yeah.
so my intuition is that I was really inspired by Andrew Cohen, by the evolutionary enlightenment and authentic self, as he calls it. That I feel there is sort of like a purpose. It's like gravity. It's that sort of like drives the universe forward. I'm not so convinced that there is really a drive towards more goodness and truth and beauty. I experience more as sort of like a pushing from behind, like that makes trees and plants grow and animals grow and drives us to procreate and things like that. And I think we're obviously very extremely conditioned by our culture and society in how to behave and what to do and all these things. But once we transcend most or all of this conditioning, then again, I have an intuition or a feeling that a really true, authentic purpose can emerge through us. Right? That we really feel, if I don't do this, nobody else will do it. Or there is this feeling of urgency of this has to happen now, right? I need to help animals, or I need to invent, or write a book, or create some art, or bring justice, a different form of justice to a situation and things like that. We just feel this urgent calling that we can, we can't help but just to follow that. And these voices in our head that say we can do that, and all the critical voices, like in voice dialogue, right, where the critic and the judge and all these voices, they kind of subside, and there is this courage in moving forward with that. And what I experienced is, and other people mentioned that too, like Barbara Marx Hubbard, when you find other people who feel passionate about the same subject. To me, it felt like, I tried to fly with one wing, and then I found my second wing, so to speak. And I could really, I was always kind of like jumping and making slow progress, but it was just like taking off like a rocket, you know, either connecting with other people who feel passionate or feel that same purpose, and specifically experiencing that with a romantic partner. And that kind of relationship obviously has a total different quality, because you no longer so much love your partner. Of course, you love your partner, but what's really sexy, sometimes even more sexy than sex itself, is what's uniquely co-created between the two of you. It's like you together birth something into the world that you totally realize you could not birth in that way into the world yourself. And so you almost come full circle on becoming totally dependent on your partner, right? But not in a needy way, but in this like, we can only co-create this together. And this is why we're brought together. And of course, it includes the material and the sexual and the power and the emotions and everything else, but it adds this new dimension. And I think I think we're on the edge now. And I see that more and more, like you know, couples coming together from finding each other on different continents, because it's often so, you know, unique to find a person who's single and compatible on all these levels and shares that purpose that we're looking, you know, worldwide. I mean, I'm in Frankfurt right now. So that's what I mean with these kind of what I call evolutionary integral relationships, where, you know, in earlier stages we focus on our partner. In the second stage we focus on the relationship instead of just focusing on the partner, right? And in the third level we focus on the shared purpose, what we uniquely birth into the world or co-create in the world.
When we are in the third level, because we birth together the wisdom factory. Yeah. Alone, I wouldn't have done that.
Exactly.
I would not have dreamt of it.
That's wonderful.
So
Martin,
Susu writes down, yes, exactly. So.
Yeah, and you have also sort of answered her second question, which she said when one is no longer so motivated by those hormonal drive. Because it is not the hormonal drive. It is also, it was nice to have the hormonal drive. But for me, it wouldn't have been the crucial thing to be together with him. Not at all. But
I get as excited and as passionate about, you know, when I feel a woman shares my purpose and feels as passionate as I do about evolutionary relationships. I think that releases the same hormones in me than when I'm sexually attracted to her. But
yeah,
you know, it feels more sustainable if the purpose is really authentic. Then of course it doesn't go away when outer circumstances change, because it's a non-material interior, you know, authentic, evolutionary, whatever. I don't even think we have to write words for that. Barbara Marx Hubbard calls it supra-sex. Yeah, supra-sex. Yeah, when we're in this co-creative process.
Yeah, there are two people here I would invite, have not yet invited you to come in. One, I don't know what your real name is, Female Exec what?
Magazine.
Okay. And Mr. Green Pepper, if you want to come in and join us and ask your questions and your considerations, your concerns.
Yeah. Finally, someone considers us cute.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for the feedback. She says, I'm Althea.
I can't join. I'm working.
Okay, good. Thank you for your cute cute statement about us being cute.
Yeah.
And you know, the thing is, as I'm over 60 and he's over 70, and we are in our fourth long-term relationship, both of us. And now we can be like that. Before, the relationship was such a serious business. It was always paying attention, not to blah, blah, blah. No? When you are in what Martin says, in lower stages of development, you have to take care that, you know, you don't make the other partner angry because he could leave, you know, or something, when you are dependent on them. And as we said before, for me, it was really the moment when I was alone for 6 years and I could support myself and I didn't need anybody. And then we did I met you there, the Calling in the One training, and I began to understand what I have done in my previous relationships, you know, and I decided, no, not anymore. The decision alone, not anymore. Don't fall in love with the wrong person. This is not enough. You need to know what
you want,
what you
don't want,
and how you have to navigate it, because otherwise you inevitably fall into the same abyss. And as Hendrik said before, who joined us before, when you are in your childhood schemes, or we call it patterns, and project them on the partner, that will come out, you know, always the same end, sort of. So we have to find a moment where we cut these things, where we just interrupt these things in a way which is not only subject to the work and to the ideas. It must go on a deeper level.
I mean, what I find interesting, and you know, Ken Wilber obviously has these 4 quadrants where the social, like social media, right, and culture, what is allowed to do, grows along with our interiority, our consciousness, and also physical aspects. And you know, if used right, you know, we have these wonderful tools like Tinder now, for example, you know, which is a dating platform. That's an app on your phone where you can date or meet people around the world. So what I'm saying is, very often people say this is totally utopian to find an evolutionary co-creative partner, but you guys met on Facebook, right? And you lived in Florida. So and I have a dating website called Integral Singles, and sometimes people say, well, there's only 400 people, you know, 400 men, or we have about 800 people on there, because a lot of people are still entrenched in this idea that they have to find their partner local, right, in their neighborhood. But a lot of people nowadays at these higher levels of development are totally willing to even move to another country. I, you know, infamously have the story of my friend Kirk in Santa Rosa, and I had a woman friend in Switzerland. I had no idea that they would ever become a couple, and they got to know each other in Integral Singles, and they got married last year or 1.5 years ago, and Kirk sold everything and moved to Switzerland to be with her. So, you know, the attraction on the suprasexual or evolutionary level becomes so strong that it transcends basically any distance around the globe. And we now have the ability to find or attract a partner from, you know, anywhere in the world pretty much. And so mobility is the important factor to make, you know, to find that partner.
Yep. There's Althea asking you if you want to write an article for her journal. Isn't that great? Yeah. You can connect with her. She told you the wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because I live in Italy and I was alone in the country, and I went only to work. I taught singing in Rome, went more than an hour with a car there, taught 8 or 9 hours, went back. I never saw anybody. And how could I ever have found a partner here? And I didn't want any Italian anymore.
No more Italians.
Because Italian are what you would call, most of them I met in the 3rd level, maybe the 4th. But I myself considered myself already in the 6th level. So whoever I met, and I was together with an Italian person for a long time, and it was just this clash of values. He was a nice man, but just he couldn't understand me, and I was not able to understand him. I only got angry. So I was not yet ready to do it.
So you weren't 6 then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had to separate. And, I did it in this, how do you say, in this somehow mean feminine way to do that. I made him so angry that then he decided to separate. So I didn't have to take the responsibility. This was about 20 years ago, 25 or something.
I'm remembering, of course, that you're capable of that.
Anyway, so this is also how to separate is a little bit not a mystery, but a skill, an art, I would say. And we will have on our series from Catherine Woodward Thomas, conscious uncoupling, she calls it. And you can subscribe for this series, which we had today before we met here. I will write the link here in the comment stream. How was it?
I just want to put in a little plug for conscious uncoupling. I was actually initially somewhat concerned or even upset about this book, but it is really a very helpful book, and I have a feeling that if both partners are able and willing to read that book together, there's actually quite a good chance that they will stay together, because it is actually really more a book of how to stay together, potentially staying together than to leaving the relationship. It's really a wonderful book.
Yeah, I've done the coaching training with Catherine, and I found it very enlightening also to work in this way. Yeah, that's really good. So there is a person who has the Twitter handle Turelle. I don't know what your name is, and she said, "I traveled the world and I am still lonely." What could you say to that?
Well,
I could say something, but he is our special guest, so
that relieves us of much responsibility. Yes.
I don't make exact. Traveling the world and being in different places all the time can actually potentially lead to, loneliness or inhibit finding a partner. I think. Of course, I don't know you, Turturel, and there's also a difference between loneliness and being alone. So, but I personally found two strategies somewhat helpful is in living my purpose as authentically as possible, and to express it into the world as authentically as I can, by going to meetings where like-minded people are, in my case, integral conferences and things like that, and put it on Facebook and things like that. And hi, Margaret. And the second thing, I'm along with Keith Witt and others, quite an advocate of what I would call conscious internet dating. And I don't know, Margaret, if you have used that, but I discovered Tinder a while ago, and of course that's a market where you very quickly can meet many people. And I asked every person who I got matched with 3 questions: what do you feel most passionate about? What do you feel most concerned about? And what is your life's purpose? These were the 3 questions I asked. That was the first questions I asked. And that weeded out, 90% of the people. Most didn't even write back, and some wrote back and said, I feel passionate about, often rather superficial things, sometimes more deep things. And that by what they felt concerned about, I could see if they're narcissistic or egocentric or, family-oriented or more community-oriented or world-centric or cosmocentric. And so even though the law of attraction says, or calling into one says that we can be rather passive in attracting a partner to us, I would also argue that if, some people have to be attracted. If we all try to attract and nobody moves into that, then we all gonna stay single. And I think females and males can be both make themselves more attractive, but also respond, to people who attract them, so to speak. And nowadays, I think we just need to use basically all technology and our psyche, so to speak, our interiority, in living our authentic purpose in finding or attracting that partner.
Yeah, I wanted to say, when you say attractive, this doesn't mean 3 kilos of makeup and high heels necessarily, But a woman is much more attractive when she is radiant. She can be in really, nothing, no first-class clothes. And when she has this radiance out of the eyes coming, how she is dressed and how she looks like is not
right. It's a thing, but then she's still somewhat limited to men who become into her vicinity. I mean, into the same space at the same time. And I found, in really attracting or finding an evolutionary co-creator, online dating or Facebook or going to certain events is it's just necessary. Like you guys met through Facebook.
Yeah, and the secret was we didn't meet to come together. We met because we were interested in the topics, and we commented on each other, and then there came this sort of curiosity, and then then we found out that we were single, but we didn't really think about it yet that we might become a couple. And one step after the other, and then we committed almost to stay together, almost without having seen us in person, almost, because we found that there were so many things which were compatible, let's say. And for me, the find a person who has an integral worldview, and he's open to talk with me about that, because you are often so alone, you cannot talk with nobody, and then to have a partner. What we are doing, and the Wisdom Factory, our show on Google Plus and on Webinar Jam, which we had before, is really inspired by that. We found ourselves not necessarily making sex every day and every evening, but talking about things which were so exciting, It's philosophical discussions. And I didn't even know that I could do these sort of discussions. And it's not that we told each other what we knew, but it was a sort of co-creative conversation where came out new ideas.
Yeah, there was an invention that happened when the two of us talked. Yeah, and it really understood what we exposed ourselves. It was mutual vulnerability.
Yeah, it was really a great thing, because we didn't, the things which came out, I couldn't have thought by them myself. I needed the conversation with the person who is ready to listen, and then not to say, "Man, no, it's like this," but to say, "Oh, if it's so, let's say," and go ahead. This is a completely different way of conversation.
It's called dialectic, right? Interesting how dialectic, it's that's an old term from Hegel, obviously, but it's entering, the integral scene, and Roy Bhaskar and other, really forward-thinking people and Habermas are all talking about dialectic. And when true dialectic, not discussion, right, or just conversation, but true dialectic happens where you have thesis and antithesis that then leads to a higher synthesis in the context of the relationship. Again, this is so, you can feel it when you two talk to each other and look at each other, what's happening between the two of you. And I just want to, since I am a proponent of, partly at least, of internet dating, I just also want to say, don't be afraid to be very specific about what your purpose is, and speak uniquely to that one person you want to attract, instead of writing one of these wishy-washy, I like to walk on the beach, hold hands, and cuddle up in front of the fireplace, yawn, that profiles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you meet, really ask the right questions. I mean, and not fear that he might be offended or something. And I really did that for the first time in my life. And I was always convinced, and I said, if he doesn't like it, he will go, but does it matter? I was 6 years alone, then I'm a little bit more alone. So I didn't have the fear to lose him. And so I could be free, and I didn't lose him. It attracted him, obviously, even more.
Well, actually, meeting on Facebook, though it was fairly intimate, there was still some distance. It was not like being in person and dealing with
and Skype then
the expression on your face, and responding to, well, I didn't mean that, but blah, 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 backtracking and so forth. But you could back out, impersonally to some extent as well.
But then we were on Skype and we saw each other. This is already adding something. You can see the person, how they react and act and so. This is very, very good, the first meeting on Skype. This will sort out other 5% of your 10% which are left. And and then when you meet in person, it was almost as if we knew each other already for a long time. And I would suggest everybody to do it this way instead of desperately going in the next disco and try to hook up with somebody.
Yeah, it can actually be quite. I mean, I also am a big fan of Skype, and you might think that doesn't create deeper intimacy, but in a way, it creates deep intimacy because all the other factors kind of like go away. And the only thing, if you want to deepen your relationship, is that you more and more authentically share what's going on inside of you. And then when you meet in person, then you can focus on all the physical and all the other things. It's almost like you don't know what to talk about, right? You talk for hours and hours and hours, and then you meet in person, and we already talked about everything, right? I mean, at least for a while. But you really got to know the other person, and then
And this is why I really like that you meet people first on internet, because there is no danger that the hormones play havoc, or how you say.
Play havoc.
Yeah, because you really can have, you feel already an attraction and also sympathy and maybe even a sort of falling in love, but you are not seduced by the hormones into closing your eyes and going on automatic. And I think it's really, really good to get to know the partner first.
I know from doing a little coaching that some people, they meet and in person, like Kirk and Aria, and they immediately clicked. And other people, they had a great relationship on Skype, and then they meet in person, and there's just no chemistry. Right.
It can happen.
That can happen too. So I advise not to go too much off on a tangent, in either one direction. When you feel there is a connection and you're really romantically interested, then also try to meet as soon as possible, in a way, if you value your time, right? And and you really look for that one co-creative partner.
Yeah. And the good thing, when we're getting older, we have done all these other experiences and we see that they don't work. And then we finally, if we have in our mind that we want to live in a good relationship, then we begin to work and do something to make it happen. Yeah. But not in the old way. No, try to get somewhere. It's a completely different way.
I have worked harder in this relationship than in any of my others.
Oh, you mean now when you are in the relationship?
Now that I'm with you. Yeah.
This is more difficult in some way. Tell us more. What is more difficult?
Well, for one thing, it's a long way home to Florida. I have to think twice about that. But no, it's just simply that we have a set of commitments that we made to each other, and the sort of rules that we have agreed to live by and interact with one another according to these rules, these commitments. And I take them seriously. And I can sometimes really grumble and moan and, God, I could never agree with that. And then I do, you know, I do, I can, you know, and it doesn't, it's not a problem. It's just not a problem. It's not that I submit, you know, okay, geez. Sometimes it feels like that in the beginning, but it's really not, because, you know, we can work these things through. You know?
We learn to be more tolerant and more, how do you say, permissive. We allow the other to be more who he or she is when we grow up. And we are not dependent on their approval of us. You know, so we don't have to try to achieve something. No, we don't. At the same time, we can use conflict to create something new, to create some deeper understanding. And there are rules for it, practices for it, to learn that. This is what we call relationship skills, no? We need to learn that. Nobody in our youth has taught us how to create good relationships. Nobody. We have to figure that out a little bit. And now people like you, Martin, and other relationship experts, they have sort of found out and created the books where we can have a guidance, no, or the coachings, which we are beginning a course very soon. I mean, there are people around who can help, but the work has to be done by the person themselves.
Individually.
Yeah, we can help. Yeah, but nothing falls from the sky, we say in German, no?
All right.
I don't know if nobody wants to join in anymore. If there are some more questions, do it now. Tutorial Adelheid, Margot, I'm Adelheid, yeah, that's me.
She's asking you if you have children from previous relationships. Yes.
Me?
I do.
No.
Yeah.
He has or had.
Yeah, had. They're adult before Heidi and I met. So that's not a complicating factor, I should say. No. And even though one of my daughters died just a couple of years ago at a very young age of 32, which was difficult, but we were together, and she was very helpful. Yeah.
Very sorry to hear that.
Shit happens.
Yes, it does.
Unfortunately.
But it has certainly deepened my growth to experience the death of someone so near and dear and go through that whole process.
Okay, so it was nice that you were here, and have a nice time. See you next time in the webinar jam. Hopefully it works next time. And we have
tutorial 2.
Yeah, yes. Margot is
Margot.
it.
Margot.
Okay. And if you have some questions, Huik is still in the room, please join in. Otherwise, I think we will wrap up a little bit and leave you to your evening.
Our evening.
Our evening too. We are online since 3 hours and something.
Yeah, it's been 3 hours.
3 hours and a little more to try mixing happen. Sometimes we say, oh, here's somebody coming in.
Ahmed.
Okay, so let's see what he will ask us. Oh, hello.
Hello, I'm Ahmed from Tunisia.
Oh, hi, Tunisia. Ahmed from Tunisia. We cannot see you.
I'm just use only the mic. I don't have a webcam.
Okay.
I just have one question. Sorry for my bad English spoken. So, what is the goods, the fact to fall in love?
What is the fact?
The goods to fall in love. Yes.
What's
positive things to fall in love. What is the goods?
What is good for you, with whom you should fall in
Yes.
love?
No, what?
Yes, of course. Indeed.
Well, from an evolutionary perspective, we fall in love, so we procreate.
Wow. So you will be more connected.
No, you will be more likely to have sex and have babies.
Okay. If you marry.
No, well, maybe in your country, in your culture, but generally, that's the evolutionary reason why we fall in love, is that we procreate, and rather indiscriminately, other than physical features. And then when you go into modernity, then obviously, I mean, then you look at that. From in different cultures, obviously, women were not allowed to learn, professions and work outside the house and things like that. So there are a lot of cultural issues around falling in love. And then, in pre-modernity, and then in modernity, I would say falling in love also serves the purpose of emotional healing.
Nice.
Because we get attracted to, as we already said, all our dark sides and the ways we haven't been loved as children show up, and it allows us to emotionally heal. And then as we heal, we can also grow. So a lot of teachers now realize that spiritual awakening and psychological healing, like Thomas Hübel, for example, that they go hand in hand. You can only grow so far without having also a healing practice. And when you fall in love, not only on a physical attractive level, but also on an interior psychological level, it's always an invitation or an opportunity to do healing and growth work together. And then in the future, what we're entering now in an evolutionary context, to fall in love is also to become real, true, equal co-creators. So there's these 3 or 4 levels: the sexual, the cultural, sharing resources, and then the psychological healing, and then the co-creative, co-creating an authentic purpose.
Yeah, co-creative, you mean what? He might not know it because he came in later.
Pardon? Sorry, I was reading.
I said Amit came in later, so he did hear that, all the explanations before. So co-creative means that you want to do something together, you want to construct something together, or do a business together, or to what would you say?
It's like playing an instrument together. It's really where you, like you're climbing a mountain, so to speak, but you're looking in 2 different directions. But where you're still together, you become you get a 360-degree vision together with your partner in this co-creative process. Or if you want to look at dialectic, right? You play off each other, because your partner can always see things or contribute things that you cannot see or contribute yourself. That's the co-creative process.
Yeah, then you allow your partner to be your real partner, right. And you are on the same level. Right. That you are really peers, no? That is important.
So when you look at each other, right, you're not only looking at your partner's face, so to speak, but you also see what your partner cannot see behind you in other way, right? And so these are all metaphors. And this way, as a couple, you get 360-degree vision, right? So as metaphorically speaking. I think Margaret asked, love heals, absolutely. But what if you fall in love to a married guy? I think I come back again and again. What part do you fall in love with? If it's just the superficial, physical, power, status, sexual, then again, it depends on what level then the 3 people are. Does that provide an opening for a truly polyamorous relationship? Where where all three can get involved, and there's a lot of material if you want to read up about true polyamory. And in general, I go with Ken Wilber, who says nobody can be asked to regress permanently in their relationship. So if this man is at a higher level of development, or at a level of development that you are, and he is with a partner who's at a lower development, and that the relationship has been stagnant for many years, and there are no children. No other. It's very complex to look at all the facets, but sometimes, this is an opening for consciously uncouple and to, create a new relationship. But obviously, I'm not a big advocate of destroying an existing marriage that still serves a purpose. So it all depends. But obviously, in our modern times, marriage is very often no longer a lifelong commitment, and very often people leave a relationship when they feel attracted to somebody else. Sometimes they just leave because the pain of staying is bigger than the fear of leaving, and they're not leaving for another partner.
Absolutely. And I wanted to add that psychologically, often, not always, I don't say that's your case, but often people fall in love with married people because there is no danger. They have to decide themselves to be in a committed relationship with them. So you might have a look also on that. Are you really, really, really willing to, if it was possible, to be with that person? Or is it for you just a way of good expression? I
would definitely say talking to a good, relationship therapist before starting a relationship with a married man would be good advice. Get a third person perspective on what your motivation is.
Exactly. Wonderful. We had a wonderful bunch of people here writing a lot of comments. Yeah. Thank you very much. And we invite you next Friday at 2 hours before now. How is it? 2 hours and 20 minutes before now. We are in a new episode of the Wisdom Factory. And you can find information on www. We don't have it written here.
We don't.
No, we don't. Yeah. So we say it, but we write it down. And this is also before www.bit.ly. This is bit.ly, then / and then Wisdom Factory, written in small letters. There you find the whole series of episodes we are offering around relationships. And today, Martin, thank you very much. He has kicked us off, as we say in America.
Not kicked us out, kicked us off. Yes, okay.
Well, thanks for having me. And
no, without com. It's bit.ly and then / instead of the dot. I write it. Bit.ly. Then it's / and then it's Wisdom Factory without anything at the end, because this is a short link and it will send you to our thewisdomfactory.de for Germany page. So it's a little bit complicated. But you're very welcome. And next week it will be exciting. It's about sexuality. So
okay. Not just boring evolutionary stuff, right?
Okay. Thank you.
But evolutionary talk can be very sexy.
Yes, it can.
All right.
Yeah, we are both German speaking, Martin and me. This guy is not. He is speaking his Western dialect.
Midwestern dialect.
Dialect.
Okay, well, thank you.
So,
okay, thank you very much.
Thanks for sticking around.
Bye-bye.
Blab.
Bye-bye.